Hi everyone, welcome to the Powertime show with Matt and Scott. And on today's show,
tell me about your business and what's the thing keeping you up at night? My favorite question. To be great and do great things, there's a level of perseverance and a level of, a level of determination you must have. And if you only are putting 100% in on the days you're 100%, you're never going to be I don't think you're ever going to be great.
We've got the key to the city now, Justin, so I'll make sure that next time you come in, we'll hook you up with the mayor and on all of that kind of stuff. So I think you've won everyone from Perth on this call today.
It's our time. Get ready, let's go. Unlocking secrets leaders should know.
Hey everyone, welcome to Powertime. I'm here. I'll start again. Hey everyone, welcome to Powertime. My name's Scott Meddings. I'm from Microsoft, and I'm joined here with my partner in crime, Matt Noble. Matt, quick intro.
Hey, I'm Matt from NCS Australia. So I run the business application practice, and I'm a curious soul. So I'm interested in all things AI and all things interesting people, which is why we started this podcast today. And we have a really exciting episode coming up as well. We have Justin Graham coming up on the podcast today. And again, Justin's someone that I've always respected. I remember the first time I caught up with Justin, I think at a 30-minute meeting, and we ended up going for about 50 minutes because he was just such, really interesting guy, a really respected leader in the Microsoft space. And yeah, he's just a great person to have a real technical conversation with and understand his way of thinking and where he's sort of taking the product. And I think, Scott, you have a similar sentiment to myself when you caught up with Justin. So, yeah, when did you catch up with Justin for the first time?
Caught up with him a few few months back now when he was over in Australia. And I've been in the industry a long time, as you know. It's pretty much all I've known. Most of my life has been in tech. I spent a fair bit of time working for a company called Veritas and Semantic. In that company, I did quite a few trips over to Silicon Valley and spoke to a lot of people that do kind of co-startup investing, seed funding people. I remember catching up with a couple of people that had these crazy ideas for new CPUs and all sorts of things. So we were sitting down. So I spent a lot of times, really, it was a personal kind of interest for me in tech startups and how they motivated people and how that whole funding thing and everything worked in the Valley. So I used to love going back to the Valley, did a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a year. And when I talk to Justin, it brings those days back to me because, he spent a bit of time at Docker before coming across to Microsoft. He'd worked at Microsoft before that. But he's got that real founder mentality, right? Like the way he talks, the way he conducts himself around, business leaders and our customers. Just fantastic conversations. And he says himself, the best conversation he can have is, what keeps you up at night? I love that. I love talking to customers and going, what can we do? How can we, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And, how can we lean in and kind of help that? And he personifies that. And, when he came out and he was leading up process mining at the time, that in itself was a startup at Microsoft, effectively, process mining. Microsoft bought the mining acquisition that had to get sort of folded into the product. So I spent a lot of time talking to him about that and setting up the team and had got a few great dinners out and things like this. So, leaned in and talked a little bit about sport. It's definitely your comfort zone, not mine, with a lot of that American sport.
I got an email going, "Hey, you're meeting Justin Graham," and he did his bio, and he goes, he's like an avid Pittsburgh sports fan, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to love meeting this guy because I can talk about sport all day, as you know, Scott." So, yeah, really great guy, really great conversation, and we had a really good discussion. He's going to share some, insights, hopefully, about where things are going. So hopefully the listeners enjoy that, but also a bit of his background and how he sort of leads team and what's really important to him, as he's running the team at Microsoft. Now, Scott, normally as part of our little preamble before we bring on guests, normally introduce something AI related to the table. So I guess what's your monthly sort of AI trend or AI? What have you found on LinkedIn or podcasts or whatever your little crazy mind goes? What have you found this week or this month for the listeners on the podcast?
I love AI, as we all do. It's core.
You do?
I believe, that it's going to change the world in a very positive way. I'm definitely on that side of the fence. One thing's really interesting, I've been listening to a few podcasts in the last week or two around, the content and where the content comes from. And one of the podcasts I listened to was by a company that the old you flip open a video or you'd have a music kind of download, and if it was illegal back in the Napster days, there's this company in America that would go after they like Napster and those companies. So
yeah, Napster, that brings back a trip down memory lane. I remember that.
So they're talking a lot about they don't want to stop AI. They want to be able to generate AI, but they want to be able to do that in a way that remunerates artists, right? And I saw UDIO, so they're going after UDIO. So we've spoken about that on this program.
Yeah.
And really what they're saying is it's not the output, it's the input. You've inputted a whole bunch of songs from our catalog and you're creating new songs, and some of them sound a little bit like the artist, some of them don't. But that input that the artist should get rewarded for. And you kind of put it in perspective because it's a $17 billion industry, the music industry and the art industry in America. And compared to like tech companies like Microsoft and OpenAI and all the rest of it, it's just small. It's very small, and we need to protect the industry. Yeah. And I never thought about it like that, because you always see musicians, you always think it's a really big industry, and because you see it on TV every day and all the rest of it. But actually, these talented individuals do need to be protected. So I think it's going to be interesting how that model changes. And it's no different to when we went from CDs to streaming music. And, Spotify was another.
Yeah,
I think
Spotify changed the game. Yeah, disrupted the whole industry. They did.
It's kind of like, can we come up with some way to remunerate artists if their music gets used into an AI generation tool that generates music? And I think that's how we come up with a sustainable model. I definitely agree. The other interesting podcast with the CEO of Getty Images. So he was talking about his company's been around 30 years, and everyone knows about Getty Images and things like this. People buy them, companies buy them for ads and all sorts of things. And he was talking about his point of view about people that generate photography and those sort of things, and what the role of AI will play in that. And they've released a new kind of ethical AI on their platform, which really allows people to go and generate images, but rewards the people that have taken the photos that have trained the large language model in the first place. And I thought that was a really neat idea as well, to be able to reward kind of the people that created the images that trained the model. So I think we'll see a lot of this. I think we'll see a change in the way that we deal with content, and I'll probably see a lot more guarding content as well, more paywall kind of security stuff, and
even written content. Writing a book. Hey, can I please write this story in the context of I'm J.K. Rowling or something like that? AI is probably smart enough to figure out and start writing some of this stuff, or are you writing a professional paper, all that kind of stuff in the context of this person or that person. So again, it really opens up a lot of doors, and definitely something that everyone should be considering moving forward. So really interesting topic there, Scott, as per normal. The other one was OpenAI. I think they actually mimicked Scarlett Johansson's voice, and they actually asked her prior to doing that. And now Scarlett Johansson, I think, is suing OpenAI because they did something very similar to her voice. Again, she definitely said no.
So no means no. And it was interesting that happened, right? So I think, and the other thing is too, I think we're seeing more advanced tools like Saw are getting released, not released to public. Maybe some of these tools are just going to get released to artists, right? And I think Adobe's playing a big role in that space as well. So, like our enterprise tools, like some of the software that gets released doesn't get released to general consumers because it's too expensive and it's not really what they would use on a day-to-day basis, but big organizations buy it. I think some of this more advanced AI sort of creative sort of tooling will probably go in that direction over time. Especially like specifics.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A different way of different perspective, because I think we're just so amazed by this technology now, but we're not actually thinking about the repercussions that has on people and all of this kind of stuff. People's livelihoods. So it's a really sort of, like I say, ethical AI and making sure that people don't get, loss of income and all of that kind of stuff. So it's going to impact fields. You mentioned before, like Pixar and all that kind of stuff. What happens with that sort of industry? Because you can type in sentences and obviously create video content and animations and all of this kind of stuff. So it's just a really, I guess, a big watch that's going to be coming soon is how the industry sort of tackles that and how we make sure that people don't get burnt throughout. Now,
And it all comes down to ethical AI and trust, right? And you'll hear the listeners will hear Justin talk a little bit about that through the interview.
Yeah.
The other hot topic right now is security,
Absolutely.
right? Customer security around, and it was a big, for those who saw Brad Smith, dragged in front of a whole bunch of people around Microsoft security issues in the past and what we're doing to address that. I thought it was a fascinating kind of, I guess, grilling by Congress in America in the last couple of weeks. So I think, security is just so important now. And a lot of the tooling is there. It's about the practice and about
implementing it.
classifying data correctly and things like that. Because we never really had to. You always had smart people in the organization that would go and, check and see if people had, really marked something confidential or not. And I guess you always had data leakage through that. But it's the ease now. It's the ease of going to Copilot. And, if you've got Copilot rolled in your organization, just type in your manager's name and go, show me all the files and show me all of the emails that I need to action that have been updated lately. And you throw that prompt in. So you have to do that piece of work to really make sure that you've got that data classification right. So I think you're going to see a lot of focus on that over the next 12 months. That's for sure. So let's take a break and we'll bring Justin on in just a few seconds to enlighten us on PowerPage's the future direction and his career, which has been an amazing career. And hopefully everyone gets a little bit inspired by Justin's journey.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm very happy and at the moment to announce one of our guests coming on the show today, Justin Graham. Justin's done a whole bunch of work across Silicon Valley, including working at AWS and Docker. And Justin, I've had this special effect that we've never used on the show, and I think it's appropriate that we use it for you. So I'm just going to roll it.
Nice.
You like that? You like that?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. I appreciate the welcome. Thank you, audience. Thank you, crowd. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. I've been keen to use that special effect, so I'm glad. So welcome to the show. And I'm joined here with Matt as well. But Justin, tell us a bit about yourself before we kick into a whole barrage of questions. And thanks for joining the show. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super happy to be here. I mean, Scott and I have worked together for a bit of time. We've had some fun in my trips to Australia, so some good dinners. So I'm happy to work with you. So Justin Graham, I work at Microsoft in the Power Platform, and I run our Power Pages business. But I've been all over tech over the past, I don't want to date myself, but let's say it's over 20 years in tech across both large and small companies, across many different roles: sales, customer support, field engineering, product marketing, product management, and now general management. So seen a lot and had a lot of fun, and I think the things I've worked on have made some pretty awesome impact in the world. So looking forward to more. I think there's a great big AI world ahead of us.
I completely agree. I'm really excited to get started in AI and the journey that's going to take us. I think we're at the forefront of this next wave. And I think for everyone involved in technology, it's super exciting. So on that, tell us how you got involved with technology. How did your sort of career get started and why technology stack for your career moving forward? So, yeah.
Yeah, it goes. I mean, I think like many folks of my generation, I think I wasn't there at the beginning. I wasn't, feeding punch cards into huge machines and huge rooms, in the 1960s or 70s. But when the Apple II came out in the 1980s, that was kind of the first foray I had into tech. And I think, it was probably 5th grade or 6th grade. The school I went to, where I grew up, got a computer lab for the first time, and I got to take my first computer class. And we, it was all floppy disks. There were no such thing as hard drives at that time, and we had a project to basically build a program that was basically a set of logic trees. And I finished that project in like 10 minutes, even though I had never touched a computer before or whatever. I was the first in my class to finish it, and my teacher kind of called my parents and was like, And my parents were like, we don't even know we're like, what do you mean computers at home? Like, no, we don't have, like, we can't afford that. So that kind of was the beginning of the passion. And then my first computer was a Macintosh SE30 with, I think, 256 kilobytes of RAM and a internal 20 megabyte hard drive and an external 40 megabyte hard drive. That was very expensive. That was a hand me down from a friend. So that was the beginning of the passion. And then Microsoft hired me out of undergrad 22 years ago. So rest is history.
Awesome. And I guess throughout your career, you sort of taken a number of different leadership positions as part of that. So for all the budding sort of technical leaders out there, sort of what are the sort of the skills and traits that you can kind of recommend for them to sort of get going and started on that career journey to becoming a sort of technical leader like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, my career didn't start out in leadership. In leadership, I was a phone support engineer, right? So I think if I had to take the formative experience from that, is I learned very early in career how to take my deep technical knowledge and sort of talk to customers and impart it to people, like everyday people, in the world, right? And I really cut my teeth on, very, very high severity support cases and things like that in big customers, very early in my career. And then, the leadership bit really came in naturally as, I was working for a company and we were, I had an idea to create a new product that I thought would be, or a new product line that I thought would be additive to the company. And I got, I pitched our executive team, I pitched the board and, got funded for it, but I didn't have any direct reports really. I just had, I was a product leader and then I had an engineering leader working on it. So I learned how to lead first without actually having direct reports. And then I found out how fun that was to see like us come together and ship something and how happy that made the people who worked on it and how their careers grew and how happy it made our customers. And that, like, the passion kind of came from there. And then now it really, for me, is a lot about working on things that democratize access to technology, right? And I think, Power Platform, I think, developer tools like Docker at their core really democratize access. So the best ideas can come from anywhere, but we need to make sure that all the best ideas can get surfaced and that access isn't the delineator of which ideas win versus which ones don't.
Hey, Justin, when I think about, your time at Microsoft, you looked after process mining as well, which is a really cool product. And probably in the concept of Microsoft, probably a really small part of Microsoft when you think about it, right? Compared to like the Azure engineering teams and all the rest of it. How do you motivate people on a smaller product? Like in Power Pages now, it's a bigger product, obviously, but how do you motivate those technical people to stay in the team, complete the goals that they need to complete and really, change the product and then align that to AI as well right now? So, there's so much to get done, but I know you don't have a massive team to like throw at it, right? Even though it's pretty big, but interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my time working in startups really taught me a lot of valuable lessons. But I say all the time, when you work at a startup, there's a built-in steel thread of culture, in every startup, which is if this thing doesn't work out, we're all going to be out on the street, right? Intrinsically, behind the scenes, like, yes, it's like everybody wants to win big, for the company, for themselves, for the families, and also for customers, right? Like there's a natural attraction to working on a smaller thing, right? Like more risk, more reward potentially, right? But also more risk, more downside potentially. So there's all like that steel thread, exists everywhere. But I think, the motivator behind that is in what way is this net new thing really changing the world or changing a good chunk of the world, and not in a like organically iterative way, right? And if you find like, there's been times where I've found myself struggling to really come up with that. I'm like, okay, then maybe this isn't the business, or maybe this isn't the problem, that really is the most important thing or the biggest thing to work on, and then you kind of move on to the next thing. But when you can really kind of have a clear vision, a clear thought or view of that, then and you can actually translate that into writing and pictures and a Figma, and really translate into a visual of a mission and vision and strategy. That's what really builds a huge motivator in a small effort, a new effort, startup, new business, what have you. Last thing is culture eats strategy for breakfast 9.9 times out of 10. Some would say 10.1 times out of 10. So if someone says, hey, what do you do for a living? And you don't, you can't say, oh, I run a $10 billion business, or I built this thing that's used by 8,000 million people, right? Whatever it is, right? You're like, hey, I'm working on something really cool that's new. The culture of who you work with and how you work, makes that fun and really makes you want to continue to work with those folks.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think Simon said it kind of wraps up some of that, go find your why as well. I really, as everyone who listens to the podcast, I really like Simon and some of his teachings, and I try and, put that into my team as well. So, but yeah, just excellent work, I guess, on a product that we see, really being the central, I think, for a long time we thought Power Pages should be, kind of like WordPress, easy to use. And I think we're starting to see that vision in Power Pages now, which is great. So, and I think your leadership's really strong there. So,
yeah, I've got a funny story about process mining, Justin. I remember we flew over to Australia, and you can actually ask anyone on my team this. We caught up, and I was quite new to process mining, and Justin showed me this demo, and I was blown away with what you could do. I think it was the Copilot with process mining, and I walked out of the meeting with Justin. I think we had a chat. We had a bit of a chat about sport, and we'll chat about that after as well. But I literally messaged my entire team chat, and I was like, stop everything that you're doing and look at this process mining video. And we're moving towards process mining right now. And you can actually ask my entire team. I was blown away with the product and capability as part of that. So there's some good feedback, Justin. I was super impressed with that product. And like I said, we've got some other customers that we're working on at the moment. And again, Pages is really starting to take off. We've got a number of projects going on at the moment. I guess the capabilities that are getting further enhanced, Copilot being able to build pages and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess, is there anything you can share, not confidentially, but is there anything you can share maybe to the audience here about some of the cool things that potentially might be happening in the Pages space? Again, I don't want to get you in trouble, but what are some of the things that you are able to share on a conversation like today?
Well, we definitely have some very fun things. I can't share any details yet because there's lots happening. But obviously, we're really thinking through, how to reinvent what it means to have business websites or business portals that externalize business processes in a Gen AI native world, right? And I think beyond the awfulness of the health scare that was the pandemic, I think one of the things that time in history taught business is how interconnected everything we have, do, use in our day-to-day lives becomes. And really, if you trace all the car you drive, the materials that built your house, your internet connection, you trace all that back to the businesses that run those things and the people that operate those businesses. There's so many interconnected business processes, not just within companies, within a single company entity, but between multiple company entities coming together. If you just think what it takes to get a vehicle, to a showroom and into your garage, that vehicle is the culmination of hundreds of interconnected business processes between very likely even hundreds of different companies and parts suppliers. So Matt, from the process mining bit, that's actually what got me super interested in process mining and taking on that business, because in previous life I had worked closely in automotive and some other sort of manufacturing supply chain related business areas of the world, and it just shocked me continually how interconnected those things were. So that's what I was like, we've got man, if we could make the processes kind of hum on their own and the intelligence from those readily available to anyone in the process, then we've basically democratized the ability to process improve to anybody, right? It not just like a handful of people. And I think Pages builds on top of that because the way someone can securely interact with a business partner that's not a part of their business entity, whether it's forms, or elsewhere, is really important to getting things built and getting things done. So it's actually plus with a much wider blast radius in terms of numbers of people that will be positively affected. And many people just forget, the websites you interact with. Like I can't name any on this call, but if I name 2 or 3, websites, very large ones that are running on Pages that many people use every day, like people would be shocked. So it's a fun place to be.
You know what's really interesting about what you just said? Matt and I talk a lot about Gen AI kind of replacing quite a few Power Apps use cases, right? So you think about it, I always use the old annual leave, PTO example. Are you going to go to an app for that, or are you just going to go to your Copilot and go, hey, could you book a holiday for me for 2 weeks, and it'll automatically go into our systems and go and do that. But Power Pages is different. I see that as the front door to Gen AI. And what I mean by that, I was watching one of our internal company strategy demos, last week, I think. And one of the demos involved having OpenAI be able to add something to a cart, right? Which is kind of the first time we're seeing this whole actionable AI kind of journey. But that sits on Power Pages. So having an AI generated kind of chatbot controlling the Power Pages experience, that's something new. And I think if we can really crack that, Power Pages becomes the front door in my book to that experience. And think about how we would have no more clicking through Power Pages, right? Let's just ask a bot to go and do stuff. I think it's really interesting. Is your team kind of thinking through this? I guess you would be, right? It's kind of the future.
Yeah. Because in many ways, the way our customers use us, is as a front door to a business process where there's a mutual exchange of value, right? But how do you do that? Like it's different. It's a little different than like just going to a certain website for information, right? Which there is an exchange of value there in some way, but from a different perspective, if that exchange of value, nets a necessary service, and that there's many customers that are in the public sector that use Pages as a front door to a business process for a public service, right? That I take that very seriously as we all pay taxes and we all want to live in a great society, across the world, and like public services, and the ease of access to those public services at full bore is a really important, sort of baseline for any highly functioning society. So we the more we can make that easier and more efficient and increase the access, which I actually think some of the Copilot and agentic things that we're thinking about is really a method to level the playing field on access to a bunch of different things, right? So I'll give you one example, just as one thing, like a canonical example we've been using internally to kind of help us think through passport renewal, right? Or even simpler, driver's license renewal. Or I think in most countries where there's vehicles, we call, in Washington State, we call them tabs, but it's effectively renewing the registration of your motor vehicle, right, every year. It's like, we all, for me, the issue is that the fact that I have to do, I know I have to do it. I know when I have to do it. I know all the things I need to do it. I know the steps I need to take to do it. Time is actually the hardest part about this, right? It's, especially when it comes to something like passport renewal, like lots of questions and necessary questions that you have to answer, lots of data you have to gather. You have to sit down, long multi-step forms, and I would love a personal Justin agent that had secure access to all of Justin's information in a secure store that no one else can access to, but Justin and Justin's agent. And like when that passport renewal time came up, I could actually assign my agent to do that on my behalf, right? It knows all the countries I've visited in the past 5 years. It knows where I live now. If I've been at that address for 2 or more years, do I need a previous address? How long was I there? Where do I work? What's my title? All these things that you need to fill out, right? What's my tax ID number? All those things, right? I know all that stuff, but I just like the hour and a half to sit down and type all that in is really the thing, right? The agent knows when it needs to be renewed. It knows what the deadlines are. It can schedule itself to do it. And that's a microcosm example, but it's a canonical example. But if you extend that type of example to all the things that like people need to interact with a business for, or even businesses need to interact with other businesses for, right? But like, hey, we're a supplier I'm a company A, I'm a supplier to company B. Company B knows when its inventory is running low on the thing I supply. They have an agent that knows that. That agent sends me like, hey, by the way, like we're getting them. My agent knows what to do when that happens, or it's watched the patterns for the past 10 years and knows approximately it's every 7 weeks. I mean, like there's so much possibility for how these types of things can really help streamline the world. So
I'm thinking like as you're talking through that, Justin, like accessibility as well. Like imagine trying to do all that if you can't read, or you can't communicate, or maybe you've got some sort of handicap. Like this Copilot technology on Pages could really change people's lives for the better. Like just phenomenal. Yeah.
That's how I see it. That's how I see it. So that's why it's fun to work on this and the democratization of access to this type of technology is something I'm really passionate about.
Completely agree. And for someone who just renewed their license, Justin, I wish I had a Matt agent 3 weeks ago, because I can definitely.
The world's not ready for 2 Matts. The world's not ready.
And all of this kind of stuff. And just rushing to get it done. So the Matt agent, we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet.
I mean, the family agent, like, schedule it. The kids need camp scheduled, like baseball, like. I mean, if you have kids, you're like, okay, you're trying to get your kids into sports. Those sports open up the registration opens up. You got to sign up. There's deadline. Like, there's so much, we're all juggling in our lives, right? Like it would just be awesome to have, to have some help, right?
My wife would totally get the family agent, and it would be rude to be in a second. I think it'd be start telling me what to do and go, don't talk to me like that. You need to go.
The golf booking agent.
So, I don't know, they can be powerful, yeah. Well, what do you mean you want to go play golf? No, you're not doing that today. I'm not booking that in for you. That's not happening.
There we go.
Time to take the kids to the park, yeah. But I've got a great question, Justin, and, this is probably pretty timely, but security's top, right? How important is security to you and your team? I'm assuming it's number one.
Priority zero. So, I mean, there's been lots in the market, like lots in the public space around that. But the continuing commitment to security and even heightened commitment is super important, because as I mentioned before, like if we kind of marry these two conversations up in a bit, right? Like the personal Matt agent, is only compelling if the personal data of Matt, is only accessible to the Matt agent and Matt himself, right? If it's, accessible to everybody in the world, all of a sudden the value proposition of the Matt agent isn't as high, right? You'd rather do it yourself by hand and take the extra time, right? So it's just an important reminder of like all the value in the world, all the new features in the world, all the new whiz bangs and shiny objects in the world. The value proposition can immediately, deteriorate if the fundamentals, aren't there behind it. So we spend. I mean, right before this call, I was on a call really working with my team on how we even step up the game even more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think trust is going to be the single trust and security, the two most important things moving forward in AI. I was just going to go swing the conversation back a little bit to your career at Microsoft, and one of the questions that we had for you was proud moments in your career. Have you got anything you can share that really is probably, I don't know, maybe your number one, number two proud moment at Microsoft, or it could be anywhere really?
So I think the proudest moment was, this was February of 2008. I did the launch demo of Hyper-V and Windows Server 2008 on stage with Steve Ballmer. And I was a lot younger then, and a lot more, earlier in my career at that point. So that was a sort of
I'm going to find that footage. I'm totally going to find that footage for you.
I'm hoping it still exists somewhere in the ether of online video storage. But that was, I think that was like literally months into my first product job after coming out of the field. And I done a lot of work in the field on Windows Server and the beginnings of Hyper-V. So like that was a really fun seminal moment in my career. And I think if I had to pick another, so last year at Ignite was like, we kind of revealed some of the goodness that was coming from, not Ignite, sorry, Inspire last summer, which is different than Ignite. Inspire is the kind of our conference at the beginning of every year where we kick off our partners, where we, the first real big, reveal of some of the great stuff that we were doing in process mining and how it was gonna pair together with Gen AI concepts to deliver some really valuable, groundbreaking things. And sort of watching that, I wasn't there in person, but watching it on video and our CEO kind of announcing that and talking about it, and then a demo being done right after that was a pretty awesome moment, given, I and a core member of that team had been with it since almost the beginning. In fact, there were members of the team even before me that were literally there from the very beginning of an email on this idea years ago to now that. So, you can never beat that. You can never beat that feeling of that 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 reveal. Yeah.
It's like a proud parent moment, taking this idea through and now it's on stage and everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's like.
I'm a bit disappointed you didn't go with going to Australia. I thought that would have been
it was
right up there, the number three.
I wasn't going to say that. It was actually my trip to Perth.
Really?
Yeah, Perth was awesome, man.
That's my home. That's my hometown.
Yeah, Matt lives in Perth.
So yeah,
I loved it. I mean, I'd been to Australia like 7 or 8 times, and that was my first time to Perth. And I mean, I just remember even on approach with the airplane landing, I was looking around. I was like, this place is beautiful. Like just
Yeah.
And I mean, just super great hospitality. I think I had dinner on the beach one of the first nights.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And when one of the funnest parts of this job, not a question you asked, but one of the funnest parts of this job is sitting down in a meeting in front of a customer you've never met before and asking the question, tell me about your business and what's the thing keeping you up at night. My favorite question. And I got to meet with some companies in Perth, and through these meetings, I kind of got to learn a different part of the world I'd never been exposed to, which is like, how do I have an electric car, I have a mobile phone, right? I've got I just kind of refreshed my laptops in my house with Razer gaming laptops, which is what I'm on now. It's like I've got Razer Chroma flashing lights everywhere. I'm a little bit of a geek in that way, but I got to learn like the materials that are in my phone, like where did those actually start, and how did they get from that into my S24 Ultra, in my hand that I basically run my life, right? And then through that, and the whole supply, like I just got to learn so much that I never even knew or thought about, in that realm. And that, like, to me, that's some of the funnest parts of the job. And then to hear our Microsoft teams that work with those customers give more history, and then give their history working with those customers, and then like how our software in the past, like those those are some of the most fun things. And like those don't, those get spoken about a lot because like, oh, I even was like the big sexy demo on stage, or like, the reveal by our CEO, but it's actually like those things are like one moment in time, one day or 1 week in a lifetime. But it's those day-to-day, week-to-week moments of like meeting someone you've never met in a different walk of life, in a different business world or what have you, kind of teaching you another wrinkle about how this world we live in all kind of fits together from a different, how it's most fun.
And of course, that took you to legend status because in the background while your trip was getting planned, I remember my manager coming to me, Angie, she said, "Oh, Justin's going to Perth." I said, "What? No one goes to Perth from the US.
You're
How's this happening?" Because for those listeners that don't know, for those listeners that don't know, it's like a 4-hour flight with a 3-hour time zone difference when you came out because of daylight savings, and it's like literally flying to another country if you're in another country. So most product managers that come out from the US to Australia, they just don't have time in the schedule to head over to Perth and do some meetings and come back. So we really appreciated it that you went to Perth because we really need to go to Perth more. And so, so it was fantastic. So thank you.
You bet. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, by the way, like if we all still want these, I'm waving my F-24, but like if we still want these things to continue to evolve, and I mean, there are so many parts of the world that are so critical to how we live our everyday lives that 99% of people will never know or never hear of. Yeah. But like that number needs to be like a lot less than 99%, right? Like if we all truly understood how things that we depend on actually happen, like the whole in how the citizenry of the world contribute to that, right? From many different angles, we'd all be better off for it.
We've got the key to the city now, Justin. So I'll make sure that next time you come in, we'll hook you up with the mayor and all of that kind of stuff.
I would love it. I mean,
everyone from Perth on this call today. There's also an amazing golf course. There's one of the best golf courses in the world at Perth, Joondalup. So if you ever want to have a hit, amazing. It's got one of the best holes rated globally.
Okay,
so it's the Quarry course. Yeah,
I mean, given how my office is decorated, I am a huge golf nut. So like, I will be packing my clubs, and they will be making the 8,000-mile trip next time.
Definitely. I've got a couple of sport questions to ask you. I know you're a sport nut like myself.
Oh yeah.
I know the Pittsburgh Steelers have made some interesting off-season acquisitions. Obviously, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I guess my first question for you is, who's going to be the starting quarterback at the end of the season?
Oh, I see. Okay,
I know Russell's probably going to start. I think that's what Mike Tomlin has said. But
I put money on this.
There's probably a steak dinner which we should put on this one. I mean,
we should do it. Yeah.
I think it will be Justin Fields, and in fact, I'm really rooting for Justin Fields. I mean, I don't know him personally, but so I'm a fan like anybody else. I read the internet like everybody else, but I just think the way the Steelers play ball, the way our organization likes to play ball, and like I think he can be the perfect quarterback for what the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Lamar light, almost like a Lamar Jackson light kind of deal. So.
Yes.
Cool. My next question is, we're on Augusta. We're going into the 18th hole. You've got to pick a golfer that's going to basically win the tournament for you. Who are you picking out of your wide array of golfers that you follow quite closely?
So
the king.
I'm picking Tiger. I'm always picking Tiger. I'm always sticking with Tiger. I mean, in so many ways, actually, Tiger Woods is the reason I even play golf. I even got started in the thing. I mean, we're not that far apart in age either. So it's one of the few examples of like, even I don't tend to idolize. I'm not like a type of person that tends to idolize other humans. I just think like we're all people. We bring different things to the table, but what Tiger's been able to do in his career has been pretty transformative, and really like has inspired a bunch of people that would never have thought before to play this sport. So, and in fact, I learned, like, this is a little secret. I couldn't afford golf lessons when my dad brought me my first set of clubs on my college graduation. I couldn't afford to take lessons at the time. So I actually learned to swing a golf club by standing in my living room, watching Tiger play in tournaments. And when he would swing, I would like when I would pause it when he set up to the ball, and I try to look at how he was gripping the club, I learned the interlock, and then like how he turned it. Like I learned how to swing a golf club by just watching Tiger and pausing and replaying and like imitating it in my living room, and then trying to go out to the range and try to practice that. So that's, so always Tiger, always Tiger.
Do you have a favorite Tiger moment? There's so many. There's obviously the iconic Nike ball going in at basically stopping at the swoosh and then going in after this ridiculous putt at the Masters. But is there one sort of iconic Tiger moment that you just went, wow, this is the one?
The win on the broken leg.
Yeah.
The win on the broken leg. There's many moments. Like, I mean, I think there's a Curt Schilling moment. If you're a baseball fan, like if you're a Red Sox fan, like everyone remembers the bloody sock, Curt Schilling moment, in the playoffs that led to breaking the curse. Right. I mean, there's many, American football stories, soccer stories like this, that to me, that was, for 2 days, every swing he took, he was like grimacing, limping, and still managed to win the tournament. So to me, I'm like, well, that's a little bit of a lesson of like, we don't all feel our best every day. If you're sick, if you're truly sick and injured, you're truly sick and injured. But like, there's a level of, to be great and do great things, there's a level of perseverance and a level of, a level of determination you must have. And if you only are putting 100% in on the days you're 100%, you're never going to be like, I don't think you're ever going to be great. So,
yeah. Definitely agree. So me and you could probably talk about sports all day, but I'll save the rest of it for MPPC.
Yeah.
But a huge thank you for joining us on the show today. Really looking forward to catching up in September and having a great conference and a nice little discussion. But again, thank you so much for joining us on Powertime. We really do appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us and sharing a lot of your learnings and insights.
You bet. Great fun. And I look forward to my next trip to Australia. So hopefully we'll be here.
And to Perth, and Justin, I look forward to catching up.
Yes, it is.
I think it is.
It should be summer in Seattle by that time. It's not summer now, but it should be summer by that point.
Hey, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for everyone for listening to our podcast. Just a few reminders. So we've set up a LinkedIn page. So we'll endeavour to put some updates on that LinkedIn page. So go on there and click follow for us. Also, don't forget to go to powertime.au and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you could please click a follow on this podcast so you get the latest episodes as they come out. We're trying to get the podcasts out every 2 to 3 weeks, so there should be a good cadence with a whole bunch of new guests coming on. Now, lastly, don't forget that the views on this podcast are not the views of MCS or Microsoft, but they're the views of Matt and I and our guests. Thanks again. Can't wait to see you on the next podcast.